Hi, I'm Seeta, I'm a speech therapist, and today I'm going to give you some ideas about working on your child's language skills whilst doing some baking and some cooking. The nicest thing is actually at the end of the activity you've got something delicious to eat too, and it's lots of really good family time together. The first thing I would suggest is pick a recipe. You can do that together, have a look through some magazines or think of an old family favourite, or even something simple like making a sandwich or making some cookies, and then think about the ingredients. So you and your child can come up with a list of the ingredients together. Ask your child to list what they think they might need for the recipe. If they're not sure, give them choices. So you could say, do you need bread or chocolate to make chocolate chip cookies? Give them choices so that they can tell you, oh yes, it's this one. If they've written a list, you can check things off as they pick them up around the kitchen or from the store cupboard or fridge. Another good thing to do as well is to think of it as a planning activity. So what equipment might we need? Well, we need a wooden spoon, a spatula, a bowl. See if your child can generate some of those things themselves. And if not, again, you can give them choices. Another skill you can work on is following instructions. Lots of instructions when you're following a recipe. What would be really good is to maybe have a recipe that has pictures just for some visual support. You could also simplify some of the instructions in the recipe. So simplify it down to 3 or 5 things, or 3 to 5 things that your child needs to follow. If you're giving verbal instructions, you can support this with a bit of gesture. So put the flour in the bowl. Just that little sort of extra cue should support your child's understanding of what you're asking them to do. Another thing you can think about is sequencing. So ask them what they need to do first, what they need to do next, and what they need to do last. And once you've followed through on those instructions and those parts of the recipe, you can recall at the end. So you can talk to them about what did you do first, what did you do next, and what did you do last. I think one of the nice things that you can do as well is take photos of each step as you do them. And then at the end of the activity, you can ask the child to sequence it via photos. So which photo did you do first? Which photo came next? And which photo came last? The kitchen is a great place to learn new vocabulary. And what's nice is that you might come across new words that your child doesn't know, but you've got the actual object or the type of food or the smell there to reinforce what that word means. And that's what it's all about. It's having that word and giving it meaning. So doing something live and having all the objects around you is a perfect way to do that. You can get your child to write down any new words that they learn. They can tell other people about the words that they've learned and what they mean. If you've got somebody in the family that wasn't there as part of that activity, get them to actively go and speak to that person and say, oh look, I learned this word today. Label things that they're doing. If they're whisking, just say, oh, whisking. Or if they're chopping something, say chopping. Label the actions that they're having to use to actually make the food that they're making. In terms of adjectives, get them to describe what they're smelling, what they're tasting, what the ingredient looks like, how it feels. All of those kind of descriptions will help increase their understanding and use of adjectives. If they are getting stuck with knowing which type of describing word to use, you could give them a list of different adjectives and say, oh, why don't you pick 2 from this list? So it might be, it smells sweet, it tastes salty. But if you've given them a list of words, it makes it slightly easier than them having to generate that word for themselves. Cooking and baking is also a great time to ask your children lots of questions about what they're doing during the activity, what's happened before the activity, what's happened after the activity. A really good time to ask your WH questions. So you could say, what did we do first? Where do we find the spoon? When do we take the cookies out of the oven? It's just a really great way to check in with them and make sure they're understanding what they're doing, and also their understanding of WH questions. More fun when you're cooking and baking, you can play guess the ingredient. So get your child to close their eyes, tell them to open their mouth, and then just pop one of the ingredients in their mouth. and ask them to guess what the ingredient is. You can give them clues by thinking about categories. You could say, oh, it's a vegetable or a fruit, or a type of dairy. Ask them to guess first, see if they can tell you which type of category the food comes from. But if not, give them choices. Is it a fruit or is it a dairy product? You can also get them to talk about where you'd find that food. It's, you know, it's a food that comes from the farm. It's a food that comes from an animal. Get them to tell you what it tastes like, what the texture is. And again, if they need clues, you can give them clues. So you can tell them what the texture is, or what the color is, or what the shape is of that particular ingredient, and see if they can guess from that. And obviously they get something lovely to eat as well.